we and I'll ask everyone now to mute their microphone as we begin. Going to be listening to a fun song today. This is the master of the house, the innkeeper Thénardier and his wife. And it's just, they are the comic relief of this musical, right? And we've been so serious and so dreary, and Fantine has died, and we're off to look for Cosette, and thank God at least we can laugh while we through our tears at Cosette's unfortunate situation living with the innkeeper. So we will look at the innkeeper who welcomes all of these guests and swindles them out of their money, and sings about, don't ask what's in the sausages, and, charge them for the lice, extra for the mice, 2% for looking in the mirror twice. And we're going to look at a story of twisted hospitality, which is the story of Sodom. So Sodom is this deeply immoral place. And a lot of the conversation about Sodom has to do with their lack of hospitality, or the way that they would target someone who was a guest. And the story of Lot is even sort of related to this immorality of Sodom, because he welcomes in the angels who have just come from Abraham's house and are coming into Lot to save him from the destruction of Sodom. And it's like, you just wince in reading this story. So there's a lot of wincing. There's a lot of kind of distastefulness in that story and in this song. So that's there's a content warning here. There's even going to be a swear word. So this is not something to listen to in the synagogue, but thankfully you're all in your homes. And I didn't try to find an edited version of this song, but we are going to listen to Master of the House first in the 10th anniversary concert edition, and then we'll just do a little glimpse of it in the film version, because Sacha Baron Cohen is just a remarkable actor in his role as Thénardier. So here we are. And I'm starting our clip from just as Cosette has finished singing that song, Castle on a Cloud. She's singing about, I wish somewhere there was a better childhood for me. And then in comes Madame Thénardier and, throws her outside to go fetch some water from the well in the woods, in the dark, in the cold, by herself. And then it will lead right into this silly and terrifying song. Here we go.
Oh, help! I think I hear them now. And I'm knowing they've finished sweeping, scrubbing, and polishing the floors. Oh, it's her. It's Madame!
Now look who's here! The little madam herself! Pretending once again she's been so awfully good. Better not let me catch you slacking. Better not catch my eye. 10 rotten francs your mother sends me. What's that going to buy? Now take that pail, my little mademoiselle, and go draw some water from the well. We should never have taken you in the first place. How stupid the things we do, like mother lies all to the scum of the streets. Still there, Cosette? Your tears will do you no good. I told you, fetch some water from the well in the wood.
Please do not send me out alone. Not in the darkness on my own.
Enough of that! Or I'll forget to be nice. You heard me ask for something, and I never asked twice.
Welcome, monsieur. Sit yourself down and meet the best innkeeper in town. As for the rest, all of them crooks, rook in the guests and cook in the books. Seldom do you see honest men like me, a gent of good intent, who's content to be master of the house, doling out the charm, ready with an handshake and an open palm. Down to saucy Dale, makes a little stir, customers appreciate a bon vivre. Glad to do me friends a favour, doesn't cost me to be nice, but nothing gets you nothing, everything has got a little price. Master of the house, keeper of the zoo, ready to relieve them of a sou or two. Water in the wine, making up the weight, picking up their knickknacks when they can't see straight. Everybody loves a landlord, everybody's bosom friend. I do whatever pleases Jesus, don't bleed them in the end. Master of the house, wicked catch your eye, never wants a passerby to passing by. Servant to the poor, butler to the great, comforter, philosopher, and lifelong mate. Everybody's boon companion, everybody's chaperone. But lock up your valises, Jesus won't I skin you to the bone. Enter, monsieur, lay down your load, unlace your boots and rest from the road. This way's a ton, travel's a curse, but here we strive to lighten your purse. Here the goose is cooked, here the fat is fried, and nothing's overlooked till I'm satisfied. Food beyond compare, food beyond belief, mix it in a mincer and pretend it's beef. Kidney of a horse, liver of a cat, filling up the sausages with this and that. Residents are more than welcome, bridal suite is occupied. Reasonable charges plus some little extras on the side. Charging for the lice, extra for the mice, 2% for looking in the mirror twice. Here a little slice, there a little cut, 3% for sleeping with the window shut. When it comes to fixing prices, there are lots of tricks he knows. How it all increases, all in bits and pieces. Jesus, it's amazing how it grows. Master of the house, quick to catch your eye, never wants a passerby to passing by. Servant to the poor, butler to the great, comforter, philosopher, and lifelong mate. Everybody's boon companion, yes, and everything is gone. Dirty bunch of geezers, Jesus, what a sorry little lot.
That I would meet a prince, but God Almighty, have you seen what's happened since? Master of the house isn't worth my spit, comforter, philosopher, and lifelong shit. Cunning little brain, regular Voltaire, thinks she's quite a lover, but what a cruel trick of nature, landed me with such a louse. God knows how I've lasted living with this bastard in the house. Master of the house, master of the law, comforter, philosopher, I may laugh. Servant to the poor, butler to the great, hypocrite and toady and inebriate. Everybody bless the landlord, everybody bless his house. Everybody raise a glass, raising up the master's house. Everybody raise a glass to the master of the house.
And they keep bickering. It's wonderful. So I'm going to give us a glimpse of the Thénardiers in the film, the 2012 film. And that's Sacha Baron Cohen as the innkeeper and Helena Bonham Carter as the wife. Just the staging of it is brilliant because you see him kind of handing over the wallet and the purse and, you know, again, things that you can do with video, with film close-up. So we're not going to watch this whole song again, but just to get another taste. Take a look.
Welcome, monsieur, sit yourself down and meet the best innkeeper in town. As for the rest, all of them crooks, rookings the guests and cookings the books. Seldom do you see honest men like me, a gent of good intent, who's content to be master of the house, doling out the charm, ready with a handshake and an open palm, tells a saucy tale, makes a little stir, customers appreciate the bon vivant.
Okay, we'll stop there. You see, even as he snatches the glasses, they have a whole room in the back with the glasses and the hats and the wallets and everything that they've lifted off of their guests. It's, of course, as I said, it's supposed to be comic. He's there to, you know, lighten their purse, making the load easier for the guests who are travelers. But of course, it's a guise for criminal behavior. We are going to look at the city of Sodom, as I said, and I'm pulling up the source sheet now, so you can open it on your own if you choose to. There's the link in our chat. And excuse me for a moment, I'm having a tech issue. Okay. All right. Now I can share this screen. We're going to look at the story of Lot. Lot, who is the nephew of Avraham, who chose to live in Sodom. Lot is kind of a complicated figure in that he's not all bad. He's of the Abrahamic family, but he lives in Sodom and he chose that location. So remember, there was bickering between Abraham's shepherds and Lot's shepherds. And eventually Abraham says, you know, you go your way and I'll go mine. Choose anywhere in this land. And Lot looks out and he sees the Jordan River Valley, that it is very lush, very easy to live in, and to raise sheep perhaps. And he chooses to live in Sodom. And one wonders kind of what he knew he was going in for. But there's something we'll see later is the geography of that region meant that it was a place of comfort and of materialism and a place of plenty, and really ultimately a place of selfishness. So fast forward, the angels have visited Avraham and Sarah and have told them they're going to bear a child in their old age. And now these visitors, which have gone from 3 down to 2, because the angels each had a job to do. So the angel that was there to inform about the upcoming birth has sort of gone away. And now there are 2 angels, or in Hebrew, it's malachim, which can be messengers as it's translated here. But these 2 men arrive in Sodom to save Lot, because Sodom is going to be destroyed. And they are welcomed, but then victims, but then protected, and ultimately protect Lot and his family. And then they help save Lot and his family from the destruction of Sodom, except for, of course, his wife, who looks back and turns into a pillar of salt. That's not for this story. So we're going to look at this tale briefly. And then I want to show you some texts that elaborate kind of what was life like in Sodom. How wicked was it? And all of these stories essentially have to do with proprietorship, ownership, and or hospitality and guests. So that was the inspiration for bringing it up against the master of the house, who looks so welcoming, but really is swindling his guests. So these two messengers arrive in Sodom that evening. And Lot is in the gate of Sodom, where, by the way, you sit in the gate to welcome people, or maybe because you're an important person and you're involved in the judiciary. But he is sitting in the gate. Vayar Lot, vayakam likratam, and Lot sees them, rises up to greet them. So one thinks, he has got to be related to Abraham, who sits at the entrance of his tent, waiting to welcome people. So he greets them, vayishtachu apayim artzai, bows down to them, greeting them. And he says in verse 2, Vayomer hinena Adonai, my masters, my lords, please, suruna el beit avdechem, come to my house. Velinu, stay over. Verachatzu, and I'm sorry, verachatzu raglechem, and bathe your feet, wash your feet from your journey. Vehishkamtem vehalachtem ledarkechem, and in the morning you'll go off to your journey. So this is his hospitable instinct, and they resist him. They say, no. Vayomer lo, no. Lo ki barechov nalin, will stay in the street. And he's kind of aggressive with them, like aggressive hospitality, pulling them into his house. So this is kind of number one sort of flag, like what's going on? Why is he insisting? But okay, that's still today, sometimes in some cultures, sort of an expectation, like you're going to offer, they're going to say no, you're supposed to offer again. But really come verse 3, vayiftsar ba me'od, he urges them very, very strongly. Vayasuru elav, so finally they turn aside to him. Vayavo el beito, they come to his home. Vayas lahem mishteh umatzot afa vayochelu, he makes a feast for them, and bread, or here it's unleavened bread, but don't read too much into that. And they eat from their journey. And before they had a chance to retire for the evening, Tera Mishkavu, ve'anshe ha'ir, anshe Sodom, the people of the city, the people of Sodom, surround the house. The translation here is an interpretation that the people of the city were kind of the elite or the town council, and the people of Sodom are the non-influential, everybody else. But that's, one way of reading this verse. It sounds like everyone heard that there were guests. There are guests. Let's go see the guests. There shouldn't be guests here. Nasabu al abayit min na'ar ve'ad zakein, young and old alike. They surround the house. Kol ha'am mikatzeh, everyone around it. Vayikre'u el Lot, they call out to Lot, and they say to him, I'm just going to scroll down here. Verse 5, they say, Vayomru lo, Ayeh ha'anashim asher ba'u elecha halayla. Where are those men who came to you tonight? Hotzi'em eleinu v'ned'a otam. Show us who they are, that we shall know them. I'm going to show you the Rashi there, which says know them was know them in the biblical sense. So either there's sort of a neutral, like tell us who's here, not so neutral, or maybe something really criminal, like let us violate them, let us sodomize them. That's the word, Sodom. Verse 6, Vayetse, I'm just trying to say that that's one possible interpretation of that word. Vayetse alehem Lot hapetcha. So Lot kind of sneaks out at the entrance of his house. Vehadelet sagar acharav, closes the door behind him to protect his guests. And in verse 7, he says, Vayomar al na'achai tareu. Don't do something bad, please, my brothers. Verse 8, I'm going to bargain with you. Don't take my guests, but you know what? Instead, take my virgin daughters. So talk about twisted morality here. Hinena li shtei banot. I have two daughters, asher lo yad'u ish. They have never known a man. So you want to get to know my guests? Protect my guests, get to know my daughters instead. He's giving them over into the crowd. Otziana ethen alechem ve'asu lahen katov be'enechem. Do whatever you want to them, to my daughters. Just don't harm these men. Rakla anashim ha'el al ta'asu davar. Ki al kein ba'u b'tzel korati, because they've come to my shelter. So I mean, it's an extraordinarily troubling moment for so many reasons. But I want to show you kind of this twisted version of good Middle Eastern hospitality, if you will, which is protect the guests at all costs, but at the expense of my own family, quite literally. And they don't even take the deal. Verse 9, Vayomru gesh hala, Vayomru, they say to him, stand away. Vayomru ha'echad balagur, one person came to live with us, this Lot, he's not from here. Vayishpot shafot ata, Vayishpot shafot, and he's going to become, adjudicator, like he's going to be the boss of us and tell us what's right and wrong. Ata nara lecha mehem. Now we're going to do worse to you than we wanted to do to them. So essentially, they say, not a chance. Stand back. We're threatening you if you protect them. And they keep pressing to break the door. So they're really attacking him right there at the door. And then who saves Lot but those two angels? Verse 10, Vayishlachu ha'anashim et yadam, vayaviu et Lot alehem habaita. They are called here the agents. Again, the agents of God, but in the Hebrew, it just says the men. So these two men kind of pull Lot back into the house. He was trying to protect them, the guests, but they ultimately save him as they're about to save him again from destruction. They're saving him from Sodom on multiple levels. They pull him into the house, they close the door, and strike the people outside with something. It's mysterious. Verse 11, Ve'et ha'anashim asher petach habayit, those people at the entrance of the house, hiku besanverim mikaton be'ad gadol. So here, the translation is struck them with blinding light. Sanverim could also be struck them blind. So blinded them, either literally or with some kind of magical light. But they couldn't find the entrance. They were deterred from breaking through to the house. They were disabled in some way. And that is the story. And after this episode, the angels turn to Lot and they say, here's the deal. Sodom and Amorah, these two towns, are about to be destroyed by God. Tell us who is in your family. We will save you and your family. And ultimately, they flee Sodom, and it ends up being just Lot and his two daughters, and the rest of that twisted story unfolds as well. So Lot represents some kind of moral striving, but ultimately failing. He doesn't have the right moral compass here. He has some sense of welcome, and then it all goes upside down. So I think, in thinking about the innkeeper as a comedic character, Lot also is this crazy character, protecting his guests, giving over his daughters to a raging crowd. It's ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. I'll just show you here. This is a tiny little Rashi where he says, where the guests, the people of the city come and say, give us your guests that we shall know them. And this is the Rashi quoting the Midrash that says, we shall know them means with homosexuality. So attack them, abuse them sexually. And so either they were threatening or they were really threatening in some deeply immoral way. And I'm bracketing the conversation on homosexuality as a consensual relationship between two loving people in the year 2022. That is not this conversation. That's not what we're talking about. So there's the biblical story. That's the narrative in the Torah. We're now going to take a little meandering look through some Talmudic texts that talk about, the people of Sodom were bad. How bad were they? They were so bad that, and then there's a litany of ways that the people of Sodom were so bad. I've selected some of them, and especially the ones that have to do with hospitality, with welcome or lack of welcome. So the people of Sodom said, Amru, since we live in a land from which bread comes and has dust of gold. So Eretz mimena yatsa lechem. So it's like the streets are paved with cheese. I was just thinking of the American tale, right? The streets are paved with gold. It's such a golden in Medina. It's such a place of plenty. Remember, that's the Jordan River Valley. It is lush. It is fertile. So their immorality is connected to their materialism. We are so wealthy that we have everything that we need. We don't want any guests. Why do we need travelers? Lama lanu ovre derachim, because they're only coming to divest us of our property. Come, let's cause the proper treatment of travelers to be forgotten from our land. So let's intentionally fly in the face of any hospitality. Let's not be a place of welcome. Because why? We are selfish. We want to keep everything we have for ourselves. And then what follows from there is, again, a litany of ways that Sodom made sure to be unwelcoming to strangers. So here are some of the examples. This is the same text. Oh my goodness. I just did a little click thing that made it incredibly big. I apologize. I don't even know what I clicked. So I need to get back down to normal size here. Thank you for being with me. Oh my gosh. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, I'm reopening this link and starting again. Okay. And we're back. So this is all in the same string of Talmud in the Tractate of Sanhedrin. And here we're moving just later on in that same page. There were 4 judges in the city of Sodom, and they all were named liar. So really comic, right? We're going to have these ridiculous judges, and Shakrai, Shkorarai, and Zaife, which means liar, perpetual liar, and forger of documents, and Matzle Dina, perverter of justice. And here were the judgments of these phony judges or immoral judges. It's like the innkeeper who welcomes his guests only to swindle them. In the case of one who strikes the wife of another and, God forbid, causes her to miscarry. So someone brings this case, they would say to the woman's husband, give the woman, your wife, give the woman to the one who struck her so that she will be impregnated for you again. Like, he stole your baby, so give him your wife, and then she'll be pregnant. So he replaced what you lost. Right? Totally twisted. In a case, because obviously, I guess I'll spell it out. Like, there's adultery there. They're saying, we are judges, we command you to commit adultery, to pay back what you cost these people. In the case of one who severed the ear of another's donkey, they would say to the owner of the donkey, give the donkey to the one who caused the damage until the ear grows back. I mean, will the ear ever grow back? No. So what it means is, if you harm someone else's donkey, you get the donkey for keeps. There's no justice here. In a case of one who wounds another, they would say to the injured party, give the one who wounded you a fee, as he let your blood, right? In those days, bloodletting was considered a cure. He did you a favor, bloodletting. So when he injured you, you should pay him for it. Furthermore, they instituted an ordinance One who crossed the river on a ferry pays 4 dinars. One who crossed the river in the water gives 8 dinars. One time, a certain launderer came and arrived there. So this has everything to do with guests, right? People who are foreigners coming, who don't know this crazy logic that you pay less to cross in the river than you do for crossing on a boat. So the people of Sodom said to him, give 4 dinars for the ferry. He said, no, I didn't take the ferry. I crossed in the water. They said to him, if so, give 8 as you crossed in the water. He did not give the payment. He thought that was crazy. That made no sense. So they struck and wounded him, and he comes before the judge to seek compensation for his wounds, for his injury. And the judge said, as we've already seen, give your assailant a fee as he let your blood, and give 8 dinars as you cross the river in the water, and so on. So Sodom is a terrible place, because it's like going into Alice in Wonderland. Everything is upside down, inside out, and also deeply immoral, which Wonderland wasn't. In some places, some parts of it, the Queen of Hearts, maybe. Okay, now the Gemara continues to discuss the people of Sodom. They had beds on which they would lay their guests. When a guest was longer than the bed, they would cut him. When a guest was shorter than the bed, they would stretch him. Again, a little bit comic, to the point of, like, Sodom is a topsy-turvy, deeply immoral place. When a poor person would happen to come to Sodom, each and every person would give him a dinar. So it sounds like, oh, we're giving charity. And the name of the giver was written on the dinar, that's the currency. And they would not give or sell him bread. So he couldn't spend the money that he gave them. And then he would die of hunger, and every person could come back and take their money back because it had his name on the dinar. We're giving you charity, but we're not really giving you charity. And we have this closed system where no one will sell you any food, and then we'll take our money right back. Terrible. Here's another one. There was a young woman who would take bread out to the poor people in a pitcher, so the people of Sodom would not see it. So in another place, it describes that she would like taking the water pitcher to the well, so they wouldn't suspect that there was food in there. The matter was revealed. They smeared her with honey, positioned her on the wall of the city, and the hornets came and consumed her. It's crazy. So even a comedic and cruel punishment. So this matter of the woman who was killed for her act of kindness, it was due to that sin that the fate of the people of Sodom was sealed. So connecting it to the cries of Sodom and Gomorrah being the cries of this kind woman. If that's the way you treat your kindest inhabitants, you're beyond help. You got to go. So I'm going to close with one last text here. So we've seen the way that Lot inhabited this city, I guess trying his hardest, but ultimately really not being much better than they in treating innocent people. And we've seen this wacky and deeply immoral hospitality / non-hospitality of the people. And it's none other than Pirkei Avot who kind of sums this up. There are different character traits. Arba midot ba'adam. It's worth reading through this whole thing, even though there's only a tiny reference to Sodom. Arba midot ba'adam, 4 kinds of people. I mean, remember the Mishnah in general, the Pirkei Avot is one of the tractates of Mishnah. The Mishnah was memorized. It was designed to be handed down from teacher to student, be'al peh, orally. So it always goes through, there are 6 of these, there are 4 of these, there are these categories, those categories. So it doesn't mean there are only 4 types of people, but this is one way of teaching a lesson, 4 categories of people. The first one, ha'omer sheli sheli v'shalach shalach. The person who says, mine is mine, yours is yours. Zo midah benonit, that's unremarkable. And some say, v'yesh omrim, that it's not benonit, it's not commonplace, but rather it's terrible. It's midat Sidom, the Sodom type of character. So I'm interested in hearing, maybe in our conversation, we'll unpack this a little. Why is it so bad to say mine is mine, yours is yours? But let's just continue for a moment. Number 2, sheli shalach, v'shalach sheli. Mine is yours is mine. That's an Ama Aretz. An Ama Aretz is someone who has no education. It makes no sense. You almost sound like you're trying to do something good and something generous by saying mine is yours, but then you say yours is mine. You've done an exchange. It's silly. So that's an Ama Aretz. We're going to dismiss that person. Someone who says sheli shelcha v'shelcha shalach, mine is yours and yours is yours. That is deep generosity. That is chassid, someone who is deeply pious. Now, I don't love this because it leaves no room for a little bit of self-care, a little bit of boundaries. But I have to suggest, because we know there are limits on tzedakah, and we know nobody ever really expects any person to give up everything that they own, I have to expect that, if we're in a society of pious people and of kindness, then I'm saying what's mine is yours. You're saying what's yours is mine. So we're both essentially acting in a giving manner toward the other, and we're both looking out for someone else's well-being. So a pious person living in a place like Sodom wouldn't last a day, but perhaps a pious person living amongst pious people, that could be a beautiful, kind society where we're all looking out for one another. Sheli, sheli, the last one, v'shelcha sheli, what's mine is mine, what's yours is mine, that's wickedness. I want everything for myself. So it's really interesting that Sodom doesn't fall into the category of wicked. It falls into this other category, the first one. What's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. There is no sharing. There is no common space. And that's really where I wanted to land. And maybe I'll take down the text so I can see all of you. What the Sodomite says is that there's no community. There's no inviting someone else into my space. And there's no me being invited into your home. There's not even a common, city square where people might stay the night. It's private property to a fault. I don't want to say that it's really the way our modern culture is, but it's close. If we keep too much to ourselves, we can slide over into selfishness and into being so separated that there's no exchange happening at all. And we see that in the way that people are very isolated, in their own echo chambers, in their own social media, in their own, even in their own homes sometimes, because we can't, certainly during COVID, we can't have anybody over. So Sodom is a place that is wicked, but wicked in a very particular way. And it has to do with, I keep to myself, you keep to yourself, and we don't want to have anything to do with people who come in from the outside. So I'll pause, and I took down the spotlight so you can all see each other as well, if you choose gallery view. I'm wondering where this is landing for anybody here. Feel free to raise your hand to the screen. I see David has something to say, Esther, and we'll start with you, David.
Okay, I know this doesn't compare, but it reminds me of Lot offering his daughters. It reminds me of Abraham when they went down to Egypt, offering his wife, saying that she's his sister. Now, how do we get around that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's a very complicated story. It's one of those that in the Me Too era looks very, very different than it did when we read it, even 50 years ago. Because Abraham is protecting himself and essentially giving over Sarah into the hands of the Pharaoh. I'm not going to have a good, neat answer for that. Only to say that the image here is much more cruel.
Oh, yes, yes.
And much more absurd.
Mhm.
I'm going to protect these guys, but take them instead. It's almost as absurd. Like the thing that it made me think about was the conversation in the story of Joseph and his brothers, where Reuven says to his dad, please let us take Benjamin. This guy is asking us for Benjamin. And, you know, we have to take Benjamin down to Egypt to show the viceroy to Pharaoh, whatever. They don't know it's Joseph. And he says, don't worry. If Benjamin gets harmed, I'll kill my children. So I'm willing to sacrifice your grandchildren if your child is harmed. And of course he means it as a guarantee, but it's just twisted logic. Harm one thing that's precious to you to save another thing. It makes no sense. That's what I thought about. Yeah. Other thoughts? Esther, you wanted to say something?
Okay. I see some of this behavior happening in the world today. With people who are only interested in their own situation. And I say people because I mean there's lots of them who don't care about anybody except their own little self and maybe their own children and family. It's me, it's all me. And I see this with anti-immigration people. This is our politicians. Well, they're representing what, you know, the people that they think they're representing anyways. It's a world in which we see so much anarchy, and this is that's basically what was going on in Saddam. Anarchy.
So it's a breakdown of community. And in response to what you're saying, you know, I see definitely some extreme versions of it, the way that you're describing, sliding over into anarchy, selfishness. And even when it's not so extreme, even when it's really innocent, there is a loss when you're keeping so much to yourself that you say, mine is mine, yours is yours. So even in a gentler version of it, which I wouldn't say is like Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, that's, you know, we can find parallels to that as well in our world, as you're saying. Yes. And even without that, you know, the way that families used to live multiple generations under a single roof, and they still do in many parts of the world. But in a society where we live in the nuclear family, there is a mine is mine, yours is yours, and there's a loss that many of us can bridge, right, with visits and with connections. I don't know about you. I don't think I could imagine 3-4 generations of my family living together. It would probably be a disaster. So I'm not suggesting that it's a bad thing. It's where we've landed. But I guess I'm just reflecting on the mine is mine, yours is yours as personal space and as separation and the cost of that.
Well, there's a certain amount of things that are your own and others, and people have to sort of respect the privacy and the generosity of others. Right. When we say mine is mine and yours is mine, somebody had something in the chat that this is a toddler. Well, yes,
thank you, Max.
It is not just a toddler, it's an immature person.
Well,
it's part of development.
So, but I also think, you know, the mine is mine can come with yours is mine. And we teach toddlers not to do that because you can't grab somebody else's thing. But they also are trying to make sense of boundaries. And sometimes we have to teach them, yes, this is yours and this is hers. And do you want to share it? It's okay if you don't, or there's a time for sharing and there's a time for possessing. But yeah, everything mine, that goes into the wickedness that we saw at the end of that selection from Pirkei Avot. Mine. Well, no, that's not yours. She came with it. Max, do you want to say more on that?
I think that I was thinking as you were talking that you know, mine is mine, yours is mine as a toddler behavior is a developmental understanding of the world, and as a toddler is so self-focused that it's understandable that a toddler thinks that everything is theirs because they are everything.
Right.
Wicked behavior. So it's not wicked behavior in a toddler. It's development.
Exactly.
I think it's wicked when a person has a sense of the world. They know where their boundary is and they still say, yours is mine. Then it becomes a wicked behavior.
Then it becomes an adult acting like a toddler.
Right. Which is wicked.
Which we've seen that too. Yeah. Thank you to the person in the room with extensive preschool education and experience. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm thinking back to the innkeeper in Les Mis. He feels entitled to everybody's stuff. And maybe it's because they're under his roof, or he's managed to schlep them in under his roof. But there's absolutely no remorse. There's no sense of theirs is theirs. There's just everything is mine. The more that I can get my hands on, the better. David? And then I see Pearl also, you're unmuted. So you'll go next. Go ahead.
One word, Putin. And Ukraine.
What's that? Say it again?
Putin and Ukraine.
Oh, yeah. Well,
that's all I have to say.
We can start to list the world leaders that we think are acting like toddlers, yes, even though they have world superpowers, at their disposal. It's terrifying.
It is, absolutely.
No, what I was going to say is that these people have no conscience. And if you have no conscience, you do what you feel like doing. It doesn't matter what anybody else says or does or has. No conscience means no ethics, no morals, no empathy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Do you think that may be related to, I see Florence and I see Annie, so I'll just acknowledge that you're both unmuted and I'll let you speak next. I'm thinking about the, total lack of conscience, and how does that interplay with the choice to make this a comedic scene? And even in some of these stories of Sodom, to make it absurdist, like chop off his legs if the bed is too short for the guest. Does that make it easier to swallow? Does that make us more willing to look at it because it's funny?
I think it's satire, and satire can be really, really evil. Satire is not always funny and nice and wonderful. Satire can be really, really terrible. And I think that's basically what it is. It's satire, not funny.
Sure. And Naomi's putting a comment in the chat. That's what you were going to say to what David said. Annie and then Florence.
The Abraham thing is quite complicated. You have to read up a lot on it. Sarah was his half sister by his father marrying another woman.
Right.
With another woman. And also he says when he comes, I see there's no godliness in this place when he arrived. I don't know if the first place or the second place, I don't remember. So right away you can assume that it's a place with no rules and they would kill him to get his wife. So
right, it was an act of self-defense.
Then at least there's a chance he could save her. If he's dead right away, then she's gone to Abimelech or to the Pharaoh. But if he's still alive, he can still have a chance to reason with her. So I think she was in on the plot, and it's not that he threw her to the wolves, but you have to.
Okay, so thank you, Annie. You're saving face for Abraham, which I appreciate. And there's a lot more to that story. And is it different with Pharaoh than with Abimelech?
Yes, it's different.
And I'm not sure if the family relationship helps things, other than to say it wasn't a total lie because they were related when he said she's my sister. But I think still it is disturbing.
Yes.
You have to go through all those hoops to say, here's why it wasn't so bad.
Yeah, I guess, but he'd already been promised by Hashem so he knew that Hashem was on his side to save them because he'd already been promised that they would have the whole land.
Right.
Anyways, you got to read more about it.
Thank you. Yeah, I haven't looked at it lately at all. So there's another story to tackle. Florence?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I just want to make sure we get around the room a little bit because I see Florence and Farla and Gloria. So go ahead.
into something more recent as as Hitler with Germany. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine. And
Yes.
was it satire or just pure evil that he presented?
Yeah, evil and delusional.
Right.
I mean, he wasn't you could say he was a caricature of a character, but then he went and did all this horrific murder and destruction. So yeah, it's very serious when the wrong person has power. Farla?
What I wanted to say was that there's been study that there might have been a huge earthquake at that time. And the area we're talking about is around the Dead Sea, apparently, and where was at the time where there was a lot of water. So apparently, well, this is some of the studies that there was this huge, massive earthquake that destroyed everything. And if that's the case, then people who survived, it was just kind of a normal thing that people become introspective.
So you're saying there was an earthquake? I'm sorry, just can you clarify? Yes. Are you talking about with the destruction of Sodom?
Yes. So with that idea, it sort of fits in. People become very selfish and introspective and only can think of themselves. I mean, we have an example with the pandemic. What happened? We were all closed in and only could focus in on what we ourselves would.
Right, and we didn't really have a choice here. Although, I guess in describing the destruction of Sodom as an earthquake, I hadn't seen that. I mean, it's entirely feasible, but we're also describing Sodom's immorality before the destruction. So, their immorality came from their materialism, their comfort, and they're choosing to be separated. It's worth considering kind of how that interplays with
maybe
what
the earthquake had happened, and these are the remaining people who had survived. And I mean, I can't, it makes sense to me, actually.
Well, look, and afterwards, Lot is still immoral, and he's, his daughters seduce him in his sleep. Like, there's all kinds of twisted things happening after that too. I want to give a chance to Gloria. You'll be the last. I feel like I say that to you a lot. You get the last word, Gloria.
I was born last.
That's the right moment.
Yeah.
Put that hand up, but because I want to play one more song for us.
Okay, I just wanted to comment on the 4 different types. What's mine is mine. What's yours is yours. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine is very socialistic. It's very, if communism were to work properly, everybody would have access to all the resources. In principle, it's a good thought,
Right.
But the thing I want to say was with Sodom, it's beyond just being evil even passively. This is actively sadistic, that they would look for a way to amplify their evil behavior. And I think that's what the sin is, because we all have the capacity to be good and evil. That's choices that we make every day. But in their case, it went beyond. And one other comment was when you asked about the comic relief of in Les Mis, I think when we're laughing is when we are least defended, and you can really teach people. After you stop laughing, you went, wow, maybe I shouldn't have laughed at that. I mean, this is really vile behavior.
Right. It opens us up a little bit.
Yeah.
So great segue to the comedic scene that comes at the end of the musical that I want to play for us, which is Beggars at the Feast, because this innkeeper and his wife appear again and again throughout this story. And here they are at the very end where, spoiler alert, Cosette is going to marry Marius. They're at the feast, they're at the wedding feast. And the film does a great version of really hamming it up, having them kind of stealing into the feast and so on. So I wanted to show us that scene. And for whatever reason, the best quality video I found was with Portuguese subtitles. but it's a good quality film. It's just whatever is available publicly. And you'll see you're at the wedding of Marius and Cosette, and then you'll see the Thénardier family showing up. You're sneaking in uninvited.
The Baron and Baroness de Canard.
Go away, Thénardier. Do you think I don't know who you are?
He's not fooled. Told you so. So, monsieur, you've come here to show to a boy what you know.
Pity to disturb you at a feast like this. But 500 francs surely wouldn't come amiss.
In God's name, say what you have to say.
He speaks, you pay.
What I saw, clear as light. Jean Valjean in the sewers one night had this corpse on his back, some boy he had killed in a vicious attack. I was there, never fear. I even found me this fine souvenir.
I know this. This is mine.
No.
This is surely some heavenly sign. And it's true. Then I'm right. Jean Valjean was my savior that night.
Jean Valjean, the old con. You pay up or I'll say where he's gone.
Where is he? Where is he?
The convent.
Sit. Come with me. Come with me.
Watch the bucket salts. Watch it till they drop. Keep your wits about you when you stand on top. Masters of the land, always get our share. Clear away the barricades, we're still there. We know where the wind is blowing. Money is the stuff we smell. And we were rich as Greece as Jesus when we see you all in hell.
Okay. So we end up with a key plot point there, which we can talk about another time. But I just loved that image of them being carried out physically, being escorted out of the wedding. And that same tune comes back for the beggars at the feast. Thank you so much for joining. It has been fun as always. And I look forward to joining you again next week.